Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm your host. I don't know why I started out that way. Anyway, welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm Rachel Miller. I'm a stroke survivor and grateful recovering alcoholic. So you can tell I feel better today. And that is because I had two special guests come over to my house and make pretzels with me. And it was so much fun. And I make it a point to not name anybody on my podcast. So you know who you are. And two young women came to make pretzels with me. And I'll tell you, I mean, that's where it's at. That's where the healing is being able to share with others. It's not just me sharing with them, but them sharing with me, and just being present and just doing something that life is all about, just sitting down and doing something that just seems fun. And I don't have to do it. Nobody's getting paid to do it. It's not work. It's just fun. And I feel like those little breaks that we get from real life are what life is all about, if that makes sense. So I really enjoyed it. And I ended up giving myself a hope star right before I started recording the podcast, because I realized that when they were here and towards the end, I wanted to show off my skills with the voiceover, using voiceover on my devices. And although I couldn't pull off showing them anything that I wanted to show them, I think the basic navigation to me has become easy. So even that they were impressed by. And just having somebody be like, wow, wow, I would never be able to do that, is what one of them said. And I said, actually, you would be able to do it out of desperation. And that's where I'm at, So what I wanted to show was how I navigate a web page, but it's a little tricky figuring out how to navigate the content on a web page. But I keep having these little breakthroughs, and I just spent some time right before the podcast figuring it out, and I think I made another little breakthrough. So, it can be frustrating, but it can also be fun. I think just anything else that you're learning. So it's a new thing. And one of these days I'm going to be just flying around on my Mac with my screen black. And, people I know are going to be like, how the hell do you know how to do that? Well, because I busted my ass to figure it out so that I could still, use digital devices and feel like I'm a part of and all that stuff. So anywho, it was a good day. Yes, I feel like crap. So that's what the price is. That's the price I pay is I feel really dizzy. So I have my eyes closed as much as possible while I'm doing the podcast today. So the topic today that I wanted to talk about I'm springing off of yesterday's, which is what I typically do. If you can tell, I'm kind of trying to tell a little bit of a story and link previous days and all that stuff. And it kind of naturally happens, really. It's not some grand scheme that I've put together. So the topic is feeling grounded in stroke recovery. So yesterday I talked about how I need to accept the story of my stroke exactly as it occurred. both the physical impacts and the emotional impacts, and not try to add exaggerated narrative, to remove any additional narrative that really isn't just factual. And that's because as I'm going through recovery, I'm depending on my mood, depending on how good or bad I feel, the story changes in my head. And it's all about that self-talk, and I start having fear get added in and sadness added in. And so I want to, in order to remain hopeful, try to just continue to look at the facts and what is going on today. So I mentioned yesterday that I need to have a daily review of just take some time, just a minute or two, even, to think about, okay, what happened to me? I had the stroke. What are the impairments I've been left with? Well, I've got vision impairment. I've got some speech issues happening. I've got a little bit of some sort of cognitive thing going on. I'm not quite sure what it is yet. We're still trying to figure that out. And the last one, what are my fears and sadness that I have just today? So if I were to time box a fear in just today, what is it? Give it a name, and then try to find the positive. And so yesterday, one of the examples was, my fear is that I may never be able to drive again. And so I didn't even want to write that down yesterday. I started erasing it because I was just like, I don't even want to talk about it. I don't even know what the word is, sad about that, or scared, or frustrated. There's so many just like feelings that go around, just that wrap around that one statement. I may not be able to drive again. For being 49 years old, I have half of my life left to live. And so to not drive again just seems overwhelming to me. So I didn't want to write it down, but I'm forcing myself to do it because this podcast is about recovery. And my hope is that I can spread hope to other people in recovery. So I found the positive, and that was that if I can't ever drive again, I'm not going to have a car payment. And that feels pretty good. I was talking to one of my friends that was over making pretzels today, and I mentioned to her that I was trying to find the positive around not being able to drive again. And she said, oh, that you won't ever be stuck in traffic again like that, where I'm driving. And that's very true. I wish, though, that I didn't have to sit in it in the driver in the passenger seat either. Anyway, so it's possible. It's possible to find the positive. I have a coffee cup that my boyfriend gave me for Christmas 2 years ago that said, find the good, because I'm able to always find the good in everything. So that was touching to me when he gave that it's just a coffee mug, but meh. I like what it was saying to me from him. So I talked about yesterday bridging the gap of who I was before my stroke and who I am now, trying to replace the fear and sadness each day with something positive. So to continue on today, I expanded, I kind of generalized. I backed up and I thought, okay, what in general are these fears about? So I wrote a few things down about if I were to generalize what some of these fears are. One, the uncertainty of what my life will look like even next year. That's one. Two, I'm unable to make plans because I don't know if I'll be able to do it when the time comes. And when I wrote that down, I thought, huh, that seems pretty familiar. And you know what it reminded me of? When we were all going through COVID together. We all didn't have any idea what life was going to look like next year, and we all were unable to make plans, schedule vacations, because we didn't know if we were going to be able to do it when the time came. So, another one I wrote down was, will I ever be able to do that again? And that's where one of those grandiose fears, like I might never be able to drive again. And then another fear was, how long will I be like this? Fear, sadness, whatever it is. So my days are filled with lots of questions. And the only way I'm going to get the answer to those questions is by seeking professional help from doctors and therapists and everything. And unfortunately, the time, it seems like there's a lot of waiting. Whenever something medical goes wrong, there's so much waiting before you get answers, and those waiting periods can be just so destructive, I think, to our mental health. So this type of uncertainty can lead to anxiety, overwhelming feelings, and racing thoughts. And it can also lead to just wanting to go to sleep until something comes along, waiting for life to happen to me, waiting for life to arrive on my doorstep. I've talked about that. I've talked about having an action-based mindset rather than sitting around and waiting, having life happen to you. So it's important in recovery for me to keep my body and my mind connected. Um, and and so staying grounded will help me to stop evolving the story, stop future tripping. So these grounding techniques that I'm going to talk about are used to lessen those overwhelming and distressing thoughts and feelings. They're a way for me to anchor myself to the present instead of, like I said, instead of future tripping. So over the years that I've been learning about grounding techniques because of my sobriety recovery, I've noticed that really all of them, and it makes sense, of course, all of them have to do with your senses. So observing what we're experiencing around us through, what we see, what we hear, what we're touching, what we smell, and describing it, giving it a name. I talk about that a lot. I talk about feelings, giving feelings a name a lot, if you've noticed a trend there. And so by doing that, by acknowledging what each of our senses are experiencing, it allows us to tug our wild imagination back, pull that self-talk from the negative side over to even just being neutral, just being, like I've been saying, factual, just acknowledging what I've gone through. What are the facts? I had a stroke. I have visual impairment. I have something going on with my ability to communicate. Sometimes I don't even know how to articulate it. That's kind of I don't know, kind of funny, right? I can't articulate the problem with my speech problems. Anyway, I try to find humor where I can. Okay, so so this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk through some grounding techniques. And these grounding techniques were originally given to me in my IOP class. So if you recall, IOP is an outpatient program where you learn about the disease of alcoholism. It gives you like a kickstart program to how to live and how to manage your feelings when you're first in recovery, how to manage stress and these grounding techniques, these types of things, so that you don't feel the need to get to have a drink. So because I drank for, I guess I started drinking in middle school. I think we concluded several episodes ago. And I drank until I was 42. 40, I'm 49 now. Yeah, 42. That's a long time that I did not deal with life and did not have any experience actually processing feelings, actually processing stress, fear, loss, grief, shame, joy. I mean, you name it. Whatever feeling it was, I didn't process it. I was not dealing with emotions the way that somebody who is not an alcoholic would. I did not, I just poured alcohol over it. I just poured my Vella Chardonnay box of wine over all of my feelings and didn't process them. So, IOP, when I got out of detox, was an opportunity for me to get some education about what the disease of alcoholism did did to me, like how it shifted my actual like physical. I'm having a loss for words. What it did to me physically, what it did to me mentally. You know what I'm saying? Let's move on. Okay, here we go. So there's 4 different grounding techniques, like categories that I'm going to tell you about. And so the first one is mental grounding. So this is the way that, let's say I'm outside, I'm walking my dog Autumn, and 2 days ago, I just started crying. I got this overwhelming feeling that my life was over, that I'm not going to be able to do anything fun anymore. I can't do anything that requires my vision. I can't do anything fun anymore. I'm going to be stuck in the house. This is no way to live. I was thinking these overwhelming, racing thoughts. So, this is how I can tug that wild imagination back to reality. So, one way is to play the categories game. So, this is that you just start listing types of something. So, let's say types of flowers or types of TV shows. Sports teams, like name all of the football NFL teams that you can think of. So it's a matter of really just making yourself start focusing on something. And then, because although many people think they can multitask, you cannot multitask. And I hope my boss is listening because I say this all the time. Uh, you can't multitask. You can do multiple things at once and do all of them shitty, or you can do one thing at a time and do it 100%. And so I'm not saying that I don't try to multitask, because I do. And my boyfriend would say that I do it probably more than more than he would want me to. And that's when I'm super forgetful, when I do that kind of thing. So focusing on something, naming types of something that interests you. And then another mental grounding technique is to describe your environment in details. So list 5 things around you that you can see, 5 things you can feel, 5 things you can smell, and 5 things you can taste. So let's do that. That sounds like fun. Okay. So I am sitting in my office right now. So 5 things that I see right now are this piece of paper that I'm looking at to share this stuff with you. I'm looking at a mannequin that I use to drape material on to sew for my sewing hobby. I'm looking at a keyboard for when I'm playing around trying to mimic piano music. And I am looking at a picture that says choose happy. And I'm looking at the microphone that I'm talking into. 5 things that I can feel. I feel this piece of paper. I feel this this teal couch that I'm sitting on, which is like a velvety kind of feeling. And I feel the carpet, which we have this cheap carpet in this house when we bought it. It's like cheap, but it's a little longer than I've ever had carpet. It just reminds me of the 70s anyway. I have, what else do I feel? I feel my pajama pants, my pink pajama pants, and I feel my hair. And 5 things I smell. That's going to be a challenge. Yeah, I smell good stuff because I always have a candle lit, but I don't know that there are 5 things that I can smell in this room. I kind of hope that there's not 5 things I can smell in this room. That would be a problem. 5 things I taste. I taste it sounds nasty. I taste the dinner that I had earlier. And I have a Coke. I don't know. We're going to move on. This is not going well. But I do feel a little more present just from going through that. So those are mental grounding. So physical grounding, one of them is to dig your heels into the floor and notice the feeling and the tension in your body as you do this. So before the podcast earlier today, I did that. I was feeling, I guess, anxious or something about something. I guess I needed to be grounded. And so I dug my heels in and I thought, that kind of felt good to just like let out a little bit of tension that I feel on the inside of me, let it out through my legs and push into the floor. So I thought that was kind of helpful. Dig your heels into the floor. Another one is, and I think I've heard this so many times in my life, but to carry around an object in your pocket for grounding. So I have done this since I got sober, and what I do is if I have a presentation, this is really the only time that I do it. If I have a presentation at work and it's either a very large crowd, like all of the staff or it's executive leadership, I usually have, if one were to ask me, I usually have my sobriety coin in my pocket. And the reason why is because I get so anxious um, that I have to be reminded that if I was able to stop drinking and continue to be stopped, if I was able to do that, I can do anything. And that's what it reminds me of, because I was almost dead, that my disease almost took my life. And I got out of that. And I was strong enough, brave enough, and had the willingness to get out of that. And if I can do that, I can do anything. So I keep it in my pocket at times that I need to be reminded if I'm just overly anxious about something. So the next section here on grounding techniques is soothing grounding. So one that I often do is picture somebody that you care about. And a lot of times, I know this is adorable, I will think of my boyfriend when I'm really freaked out about something, because there is just this peace that he gives me. He always has. And so I picture him. He's usually the one that I picture. But I will picture my two kids in certain situations. If I need to feel loved, those are the two that I will first picture. If I need to feel brave, I'll picture my boyfriend. And another one is to remember a serene place and how your body felt when it was there. And I do that a lot also because because I'm typically, they're few and far between. And so that's where that snapshot technique is that I shared with you. That if I'm experiencing something that is just, something I want to remember for the rest of my life, I pause and I'm like a human Polaroid. I will take a snapshot of whatever it is, so that I can remember it at times when I need to be soothed. And then the last category of grounding is somatic grounding. So this one's interesting. I don't recall this being introduced to me in my IOP class, but it says find a place on your body that feels calm, even if it's the end of your little toe. And I think that's adorable. I've never tried that, to be honest. So I'm going to keep that in mind if I can. And I find it difficult when you're like in the thick of anxiety to try any of these things. It's almost like when I'm actually now I'm talking about anxiety. If I'm like in the thick of anxiety, it's nearly impossible for me to even remember any of these grounding technique categories, much less any of the individual things that I read. But it's practice. It's all about practice. The more that I try to do it, maybe when I'm walking my dog over to the elementary school tomorrow for her to take a run, I'll just practice naming NFL football teams, or I'll practice naming flowers or something, and just get the habit of doing that kind of stretching my brain, just like you would stretch in yoga. I think that kind of exercise is like stretching your brain and exercising it. So I think I'm going to try that. Anyway, so that's what I have for you today. And I I texted with an individual today, who knows that she can come over and make pretzels anytime as well, who also has a podcast. And so I listened to her podcast, and it was so cool because I'm not like the master of podcasts. I don't even know. I've only listened to a handful of podcasts in my life for me to all of a sudden be like, I'm going to start a podcast. And so to listen to the podcast, it was just great. I really enjoyed it. So if you're listening to my podcast, I really enjoyed yours. And so I hope that other people are enjoying mine. I know that people kind of browse different podcasts and you find one that's suitable for you. And I know sometimes mine gets a little deep. Sometimes I may even shed a tear or two. But I also like to share a lot of humor, hopefully, and just try to keep it upbeat. One of my pretzel makers was leaving today, and she said, "How do you come up with your topics?" And I said, "Well, I go to my AA meeting in the morning and see what topic that meeting is about, and if anything strikes me um, that I can apply to my stroke recovery, then I'll jot that down and spend some time thinking about it because I've got more than enough time on my hands." So I will sometimes sit out on my back deck while the dogs run around, and I drink my coffee and I think and I take notes. And if nothing just comes to mind that way, I also have lots of resources. I've been in recovery for my my alcoholism for 7 years now. So I have a plethora of a library on recovery, and so I'll pull out a book. I can't read the book, so I have to really look at the table of contents, and if there's anything there that jumps out at me, I may go onto my iPhone using VoiceOver and search it so that I can listen to articles about that topic. So uh, that's kind of what I'm doing. It is hard. It's hard for me to research anything, um, because I can't look at books and I can't look at anything at my computer or anything. So I've really been very reliant on my phone and using VoiceOver because I'm getting to be pretty masterful at VoiceOver on my phone and being able to navigate web pages and all that stuff with the screen off. Um, I'm still challenged with YouTube, but I'm getting there. YouTube has too many advertisements. If anybody works at YouTube out there, stop having so many advertisements for access. No, actually, have an accessibility feature that if you have VoiceOver on, the first thing that it reads on the web page is accessibility options. Go straight to search results or something like that. That's what I just learned this evening that Google does. Google search does is if you have VoiceOver on your Mac, the first thing it'll do if you do a search is it'll read go straight to search results or go straight to content or something like that, so that it just makes it easy for people that are blind and visually impaired. So and that's what I am now, visually impaired. See, I'm stating the facts. I'm staying in the moment. Okay, well, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.